Welcome to the Six Figure Business Mastery Podcast, where every week, Kirsten and Jeanne dive into the essential topics to fuel your business growth. From copywriting to course creation, mindset to video marketing, they've got you covered. Tune in for expert guest interviews on all things marketing and business, and learn how to work on your business, not just in it. So, get ready to unlock your business potential and take it to the next level.
One of the things you want to consider too is that if you are on a podcast that does audio and video, here's a great opportunity for you to get exposure. You can, if you have your own YouTube channel and they put it on their YouTube channel, you can share it on yours.
Hey everyone, you've got Jeanne and Kirsten here today, and we are so excited to talk with you about why getting booked on podcasts could be part of your long-term marketing strategy. And there's lots of great reasons. And one of those is it's an evergreen strategy. It is an awesome strategy to build in as a long-term strategy because it's like a flywheel. Once you start getting booked on podcasts consistently, you get invited back. And it's something that's very easy to do and very easy to leverage. So Jeanne, when you think about getting booked on podcasts, and we go back to our why we wanted to get booked on podcasts, and also most of the people we talk to, what's the number one reason people want to get booked on podcasts?
They want more leads and more sales. That's the bottom line. That's what everybody wants. And podcast guesting is just such a great way to do that because you can have a call to action like you would in a YouTube video. And it doesn't have to come at the end. It can come in the middle or it can come at the end. That can be something as exciting. Buy my new book. And then you get a chance to tell people a little bit about your new book. It can be book a call with me. I'd love to talk to you and see if what I offer makes sense for you. Do you have stories to tell for these?
Yeah. So one of our clients is launching her book really soon. And so her goal was, one, to start a podcast and start interviewing experts in her space, which she did start doing. And then her other side of the strategy was getting booked on podcasts so that she would be getting her name out there and her brand out there before the book even launched. So it's a good idea to think about the things that you are going to launch in the future and how getting booked on podcasts could be part of that strategy. How could it play in to part of that launch strategy? One of the things that we do is we try to consistently get booked on podcasts. And yes, when we have something new coming out or we're really, one of the best things about podcast guesting is you can really get exposure to your ideal clients. If you get booked on the right podcast, then you get to talk to your ideal clients. And one of the things that Jeanne always says is that people who listen to podcasts are loyal to those podcasts. They're loyal to that podcast host. And often people who do listen to podcasts listen to multiple podcasts. So if you have an opportunity to get in front of your ideal clients, why would you not do that? And I feel like that's exactly what podcast guesting is. And it's really funny because I was talking to someone the other day and I said, if you could get in front of 100 of your ideal clients, but you would have to drive an hour and you would get an opportunity to speak to them for an hour. And then you would have to drive back an hour. Would you do it? And they're like, oh, absolutely. Podcast guesting is like that without the drive. And so you don't have to go on the largest podcasts that are out there. You don't have to always be on that top 1%. You just want to get on those podcasts that have your ideal clients that are loyal listeners, because that alone can change your business. Because Jeanne said, they will buy your book. They will click and buy your $49 offer. They will book a call with you if you're really interested. They will book a call with you if they're very interested in what you're talking about and if the time is right for them. So it really can just generate great sales, but it's also a great way to build your email list so that you have ongoing leads. So that's another thing that's really important is getting in front of your ideal clients and then having call to actions that are going to move them closer to buying from you.
If you are getting on the right podcast, not only are the people listening important, but the people that are listening to that podcast because they believe in the host. They put a lot of confidence in the host and what the host brings to them. They're very grateful. And so if they're bringing you as a speaker in front of their audience, it's like they're endorsing you. And that can be a really big, important way of not only getting in front of your ideal clients, but getting to know the host and being endorsed or supported by the host. And that kind of brings up something else too, is that sometimes you can get to know the host and then possibly do something collaboratively with the host. Getting to know the host can be important too, because you never know who the host knows. Like they typically know other podcast hosts. So they might recommend you to another podcast. They might want to do something collaboratively with you. You could put a product or service together, or maybe they want to become an affiliate. It's really important networking wise to get to know podcast hosts.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that has been so meaningful for us when we started our podcast. And then obviously going as a guest on other people's podcasts is just how warm and inviting the podcast community is and how much they really want to lean into long-term relationships. They're not just about wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, come as my guest and then booger off. They really do want to build lasting relationships. And I think that's so important. I know you and I get a ton of joy out of interviewing our guests on our podcast, and we make some great connections and build fantastic relationships. And yeah, there's so many opportunities for different types of collaboration. And I think that was something, Jeannie, maybe you feel differently, but it wasn't something I was totally expecting. Yeah,
I agree. And you just never know where that can go as well. We have a really good friend who got offered to speak at a really important big event because he was on a podcast and they heard him and they liked what he had to say. And they thought, yeah, we want this guy at our summit. And so he was really excited and he did a fantastic job, but it wouldn't have happened if he wasn't a guest on a podcast.
Yeah, I think that's really important too, because a lot of the people that we talk to, one of the reasons why they love going on other people's podcasts as a guest is they're looking for speaking gigs. And so when you are on a podcast on a consistent basis, it really builds your authority in your niche. So people get to know you as the lead, or they get to know you as, oh, that's the person I want to call if I want to have a guest talk about that topic. And so it doesn't take long before you get offers to speak on stage or offers to speak at summits. And I think for so many people, that can be one of their primary reasons for going on podcasts. Obviously, it's leads and sales and all those things. But for a lot of our clients, it is also about getting on a stage.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when you're on the stage, you're the one everybody's looking at. And just a podcast host is like your endorsement. The whole event is endorsing you because you're the one standing in front of the room.
And there's some other really simple reasons why I think going on a podcast is beneficial to most business owners. One, our virtual assistant books our pod speaking gigs. So I just have to show up. I see on my calendar that I have 2 podcast interviews booked today. And I just log into our software and I check to see all the notes. I check out a couple episodes if I haven't already. And then I'm prepared and ready to jump on that interview. And so it's, again, I'm not driving hours to meet people. It's very efficient, in my opinion, as far as getting out and getting your message out to the world in a very efficient way. The other thing I think that we often don't think about is that you can drive traffic to other areas. So for example, you can say, hey, we've got a podcast, check it out. So you can increase your listeners to your podcast by having that as your call to action. You can drive people to a webinar or a class that you have. So you have so many opportunities to give away information and to truly help people. And that's what I think is really important to understand. It is every host wants you to bring value to their audience. And if you bring value, people feel it, and then they want to connect with you even further. So it's a great way, again, to be thought leadership. It's a great way to build your audience on any platform. And don't forget, usually the host is going to have your website and they're going to backlink to that. So if you're really looking at SEO for your website, you'll have a backlink for every podcast interview you're on. And that can be very helpful as well.
And it's also a great way to show if somebody wants to book you on a podcast or to book you in a speaking engagement, they can go to your YouTube channel and see all the different podcasts that you've been on. So they can get an idea of what kind of speaker you are.
Yeah, and podcast interviews give you great content to market yourself. So not only creating that playlist on your YouTube channel, but you can then take the clips. Most of us podcast hosts, we put together clips of the podcast and we usually tag our guests. So you can repost those. You can tag the host. Sometimes you can create your own content from that podcast. And you can definitely send it out to your email list. You can say, hey, this was a great interview I did with so-and-so. It's about this. I hope this information helps you. So you have so many opportunities to leverage that interview in other ways to help you get the reach even further and help you show up as the expert or the authority.
Yeah, I feel like we did it backwards. Like we have a podcast, then we did podcast guesting. And to be perfectly honest, so being a podcast guest is so much easier than having your own podcast. You don't have to worry about audio editing. You don't have to worry about writing the show notes and uploading it to the podcast platforms. I think in hindsight, we may have started with podcast guesting before we had our own podcast. But that's just a thought.
Yeah, we have done a few interviews over the years, but we never really leaned into it. For some reason, I was thinking it's the lazy ladies way. Get booked on other people's podcasts rather than hosting your own right away. But that also brings me to another point. I feel like when you're a guest on someone else's podcast, you get really clear on your different pillars of content that you're going to talk about. You really dial in your call to actions and you get to see which ones are converting. And you get to become a better speaker. I can tell you right now, there isn't a podcast that I don't go on that I'm not thinking, oh, wow, I learned something from that host that'll make me a better host. Or even when we have guests on our podcast, I'm thinking that person was a fantastic guest. I love the way they said that or the way they did that. I want to take that to my guesting. So it does allow all of us to get better at what we're doing. It helps us get more clear on the message that we're putting out to the world. And it's interesting because the host will ask you questions that'll lead you down a different conversation that you might normally not have. We all have all of this information, and our journey to getting where we are was a windy road, but we often talk about the same parts of that road. So when you're on a podcast and the host is asking you questions, it can really help you bring out more of your story. It can help you really shine a light onto who you are, why you do what you do. So I just feel like that's something that's pretty powerful too, Jeannie.
Yeah, absolutely. So we would love to hear in the comments, do you use podcast guesting as part of your marketing strategy? So if podcast guesting sounds like something you'd like to learn a bit more about, then just reach out to us. You can find us on Facebook at Six Figure Business Coaching. You can find us on Six Figure Business Coaching. You can pretty much find us anywhere at Six Figure Business Coaching.
Yeah, we'll put a link in the show notes. So if you want to book a call and have a conversation, you can. You want to go check out, some more of our content, we'd love to have you do that. But hopefully this conversation has made you start thinking about why podcast guesting might be a good part of your marketing strategy. And again, we're happy to answer any questions you guys have in a call or talk more about your goals with guesting as being a podcast guest.
Fantastic. We hope that you learned something. We hope that we got you thinking about podcast guesting because, we love it and we think it's just an amazing and smart strategic marketing outlet. So thank you everyone for being here today. We appreciate you, always appreciate you listening in on our podcast. We hope you found some value, maybe sparked some ideas or some thoughts about podcast guesting. So as we said before, feel free to reach out to us. We'll put a link in the comments below if you just want to talk about it and toss around some ideas. So thanks again, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for listening to the Six Figure Business Mastery Podcast. If you enjoyed listening to this episode and you are ready to leverage video marketing on all online platforms, or maybe even start your own video podcast, then you need to check out the Done For You and Done With You program at themarketingvaadvantage.com and take your business to the next level.